so excited because my teenager's girlfriend keeps asking when more episodes are going to come out, and that makes me feel really good.
Oh, we love validation.
I know, especially from teenagers.
Oh, yeah, they're scary sometimes.
Well, but I just love them. I just really love them. I love the way they think. Like one of Caleb's friends, a girl, texted me the other day and she goes, "Hi, I miss you very much."
That's so cute. I get nervous to walk by a pack of them on the street. So
maybe
when I'm older.
Yeah, I've always just my heart. I love them. Okay, so episode 3 was obviously all about ugly judgments.
Yes.
And you and I happen to follow Balin. Do we even know her last name? No. So she is a girl who's like taken TikTok and social media and Instagram by storm because she has like a very severe case of Tourette's, and she has very intense tics. But she's also really freaking funny.
The funniest.
And what Zoe and I realized when we were talking about how funny it is when she's like, "Little tiny wiener, wind it up," right? Like she's just so funny. Is those are reflexive, ugly comments, and she doesn't have control over them coming out.
Yeah.
And so we just wanted to like loop in from the end of our last episode that is a perfect example of that would be like she has struggled with being embarrassed, going and, like I remember watching a TikTok video of hers that was like normally they board first on an airplane because she gets to go to the back of the plane so that it's not full, or like she gets to go to her seat first so it's not full when she's walking on and having tics. And she told this whole story. Well, she's obviously having tics, which made it even funnier because it took forever for her to tell this story. But her tics were really under control. And she was like, I think we can wait. I think we can board with everybody else. We don't need pre-boarding, whatever. So she ends up finding out that she's boarding group number 7. And like the whole plane is full. And all of a sudden her tics go crazy. And she's walking through the whole airplane being like, "Fuck you."
Oh my God. I did
know.
not see that one.
Oh my God. It was funny. I love her vulnerability and the way she tells her stories. And I love that she's getting her own like cool show where we can highlight, not only is that like a mental illness that comes with stigma where people maybe over talk about the funniness, but she she finds a way to embrace the humor.
Yeah.
But I also just think that's a really good example for everyday folks who don't have Tourette's. The ugly thoughts exist.
Yeah.
And you should not feel judged for them.
Yeah.
And for every day, you can be grateful that you don't have a disorder that makes you shout them out. And if you do, I hope that you can handle it with half as much support and grace as she has, because she has really done a lot to destigmatize Tourette syndrome. And yeah, so just like that validation of like ugly thoughts are real. My favorite one will always be the little tiny wieners. It's so funny.
She's so funny.
She's so funny. So that's just kind of like a little extra episode 3 action.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about communication. So a lot of people have like asked comments or just kind of ask us in general, not even just since the podcast, like, well, how do you guys like get through stuff? How do you talk about stuff? And my claim to fame as a licensed marriage and family therapist is I love like the bread and butter of communication. And there's so many different like communication tools that people can learn and how to talk to each other. And there's a really common one that people use called a poop sandwich, where it's like positive, opportunity, opportunity, positive, where you would say something like, "You look really nice today. I think we really need to discuss your clothing because you might not be dressed appropriately for this event. Do you think we could look at your wardrobe?" Right? So it's like positive, opportunity, opportunity. Oh, and I didn't add another positive. But that's, you have a really pretty face, right? Or something, right? Like positive.
What an example.
Right. Especially after last episode. Whoops, my bad. But you do have a really pretty face and you're smart.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, was this about me?
No, it was generic. Oh my goodness. So
Tear and repair. Look at I'm setting us up. I'm just kidding.
You are.
Yeah.
So I made up my own, which I think you probably heard me talk about it at a speaking engagement, but maybe not, because you don't like you don't fangirl over everything I do. Can't possibly have the time. But I changed it in classic Erin form. I made it from a poop sandwich to a shit sandwich.
Oh yeah, I've heard this.
Yeah, the SHT. So I believe that when you talk to people, it shouldn't be a positive opportunity, positive. Like, especially if that's not, if you don't have necessarily positives. So my shit sandwich is supportive, hearty, and teaming. And I think of it this way, of like, bring something supportive. Hey, I really feel like we are a good team and we can resolve any problems together. Hearty. This is how I felt about all of these things that happened between us. And I really feel like it hurt my feelings and I want to address it. And, here's my feelings. And then teaming is, how can we work through this together? So instead of it like creating fluff to be like, you know, like sleight of hand magic tricks where it's like, oh, look over here, but really I'm telling you shitty stuff over here. My version is the shit sandwich, where it's very supportive, which is grounded in honesty. You can share the hearty stuff, like, which, you know, is also from the heart. And then you can find a way to team. And I feel like, not only do I use this in a professional setting, and I've taught so many people this, but I actually don't even realize I do it in my personal relationships, you know, even in ours, right? Like I can think about, as therapists, there's times where maybe we struggle to say stuff to each other or don't want to hurt each other's feelings. And I think that especially happens between friends.
Yeah.
You know, where maybe you don't say something, even though it might not be honest, because you don't want to hurt their feelings.
I was just thinking about going through your closet. How over time I'll be really kind about stuff, and then once we've been doing it for like hours, I'm like, that's an ugly shirt. And then you get rid of, that's where my head went straight. But like, what's your example of that?
Well, no, I think that's a good one. So I learned from my a colleague of mine, Tina Payne Bryson from California, that her and her besties, they do a mean purge where they'll like, you know, maybe sip on some champagne, or maybe I made that part up, but that's how I picture it in my head. I picture in my head that they grab a couple of cocktails, go to each other's houses, and they mean purge through each other's closet. Like, man, I don't like that, or that's ugly, or you don't look great in it. And they just like help each other get rid of clothes in their closet. So this is something that Zoe, when I learned it from her probably 4 years ago, we started doing it because I have I love clothes. I wouldn't say I have a shopping problem. I just love clothes, and I don't get rid of anything.
No.
And I need to. And so Zoe would come over, and the first time we did it, she would be like, that's fine. Or like, sure, you could probably find a place for that, for an event for that. And then like 2 hours later, she's like, it's fucking ugly. Throw it in the pile.
I've seen more sparkles in my life in these last 2 hours, and I don't ever want to see sparkles again.
Yeah, she'll say that. And dare I bring up, like, and then there's also these moments in our friendships where I'm like, I like the sparkles.
Yeah.
And she'll be like, fine, keep it.
And I'm like, I support you in dressing how you want to dress, even though she knows I don't like it, because I feel comfortable telling her that, because my opinion of her shirt isn't going to dictate our friendship.
Yeah. And so that brings me to the point of this whole conversation.
Yeah.
Most of the time people argue because of misunderstanding, not because of misalignment.
Yes.
And a lot of times that's the problem, is that people think that somebody's like attacking their values. When really it's like, I every day I walk through the world accepting that people are different from me.
Of course.
You know, and then for some reason, when I want to have a communication with somebody who I care about, I assume that they think the worst of me.
Yeah. No,
or that they want to attack my values.
Yeah.
When it's like the only reason we're even talking to each other is because we have similar values.
Yeah.
You know?
No, that's a good point.
And so we use the concept of like the supporty hearty teaming. And a lot of people just ask like, well, how do you maintain friendships? Like, how many friendships have you heard of are just like completely eroded because there was one blow up argument where people just couldn't get through it, and they still are like, we're frenemies, or like, it's fine, we coexist.
Yeah. I mean, yes and no. I feel like it's almost more like family relationships that happens more with, but this is still applicable to family, I feel like. But
100%.
Yeah.
Anybody you're close with, anybody where you might value a relationship. I think it's interesting you brought up family, and I agree with you. I think more people are willing to cut off their family because if there's an ill intent sometimes where there isn't alignment, and there's a force, like you know, I worked with these clients years and years ago, and I loved it. I worked with the teenagers, but also the parents sometimes, and they called it forced family fun, where they would like make like once a month, they would all have to go out and do like go to the science museum or do whatever. And I'd use it with my family all the time. I'm like, forced family fun time. But the key word there is forced, and that more people who are developing boundaries or in like a polarized political climate, they're kind of like, my family is somebody I need to create boundaries with.
Yeah.
Which is very different from friends. Like,
it is. I also feel like with family, people are more willing to cut ties because it feels maybe a little easier to come back from it because they're still your family no matter what, versus friends. I think people are less likely to be honest and vulnerable and have the right boundaries because it feels like more work to get that person back in your life because you're not blood related. You're not going to see them at holidays. Like, you have to put effort in to tear and repair, I think, even more with friends than you do with family.
Yeah, because family just kind of defaults. It's like, oh, wait, we used to take baths together as children. We're probably not going to just ditch that memory. But you know what I mean. Right?
Did you take bath like your sister?
Yeah, there's like pictures. And you know what the funny part is that they're all in like hundreds of photo albums. And my mom like put stickers over the private parts that are like word bubbles that are like, oops.
Oh, I love that.
She's so cute.
That is so cute.
Yo, Deb.
Okay, sorry. Anyways.
But yeah, I mean, I agree with you about the family stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I think communication with family, we've had to do it our whole life. Like, I will never forget when me and my older sister, who we've agreed is one of the funniest people on the planet.
Oh, yeah.
Like, Shayna, she's just the best.
She's so funny.
She has been my best friend my whole life, at least one of them, you know, family best friend, different than my platonic lovers. It's actually really funny. Our first episode came out and she texted me. She goes, "Am I not your platonic lover?" And then I left her unread and she's like, "Is it because we share DNA?" And she's like, "Fine." And then she sent me like a mad face. And she goes, "I think I'm more important than a platonic lover." And this is over like 5 or 6 hours. And then she calls me that night and she's like, "But like we are, right?" And I'm like, "We're not. You're my sister." Yeah. I'm like, "You're so much more / better / different / the same." And then I winked because, you know.
You winked through the phone?
Yes, I did. Well, no, it was on FaceTime.
Oh, that makes more sense.
You know, just so she doesn't get too much power. But the point is that like when we were kids, my dad, her and I have only gotten like one physical fight, you know, and it was over something stupid. Only one. But it was like so pathetic because we were best friends. But it was like I borrowed something of hers or she borrowed something of mine and ruined it. And so she came after me and like wanted to like hit me a little bit like this, like I'm cat fighting, like throwing my hands up. And my dad just comes in and is like, "Girls, not to the face." It was so funny.
I mean...
Yeah, but that's like the whole point is like then like 3 hours later we were like, "You want to watch a movie together?"
Yeah.
And I don't know if that experience a lot of people would have with a friend who feels optional.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
So it's harder. To your point, you're right. It is harder to manage relationships, and where I feel like so many people's relationships and where we've kind of lost the sense of community or like investment in our closest friendships. Not only have we gotten busy, but we've gotten like so emotionally charged that we feel like we can just live like I can share my piece and walk away.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that sucks. You know, like my parents are very social, arguably more social than most of the people my age. And they have friends that they've had for a long time. And they have gotten in fights with them and they've gotten through it. And I feel like that is something of previous generations that unless you're very intentional about it, a lot of people don't do that. Like I can think of a couple people in my life that have just been like cut off.
Yeah.
You know, or like I had a sister who had a really good friend where out of nowhere, like they were just like misalignment and like the friend just cut her off and she was like left being like, "Why don't you want to fix this?"
Yeah, no, I guess I haven't had that experience personally, of the like, why doesn't someone want to fix this? But I think that's probably because I'm a persistent person though. Like I will actively seek someone out to resolve an issue because I'm so uncomfortable having an issue. Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
I think I get so uncomfortable of like, I don't want this person to feel whatever towards me, so then I overcompensate and try to like really rehash things and like make things be better, which isn't always the right way to go about it either, but like it's something I guess I can't speak of personally of like someone cutting me off and it not being resolved.
But it's because you address it. Yeah. And the reason you address it is because you don't want to, it's both probably. And I can say this about you because we have had plenty of those moments where it's like it could have gone this way or this way, but we choose each other. Exactly. Which means we find the solution and we just talk openly. And one of the best parts is like, you know, we talked about in the last episode, having somebody you can share your ugly with and then cheerleader you. You and I were having some like scheduling stuff, like literally about the podcast, like where you had stuff going on that were things that you value. Total misalignment. I don't value those same things. And so maybe I rolled my eyes a little bit when you were like, "I'm busy because I have these events going on." I'm like, "Ugh, I just need to do this." And then I scheduled it when it worked for me and the other people. And you were like, "I feel like you're doing this purposefully to like disclude me." And I was just honest. I said, "Well, even though I don't agree with the stuff that you're doing," I said, "for me, my boundaries, I just have to get it done because I'm really busy." And you were like, "Okay, I understand." And then we were able to take it a step further. And I was like, "I need to get this stuff done. And I do want to work around your schedule, but I'm also feeling really stressed about this." Yeah. And you were like, well, and I said, "Maybe you're having a little bit of FOMO." And you were like, "I am. Like that is what's driving my upset, you know, because I don't want to miss the thing that I want to do that's important to me, but I don't want to miss this." And we had a really good a really, really good conversation,
We
I
did.
feel like,
We
about
did.
how we can address it and how we can address it the next time. And ultimately, I still ended up having the meetings without you
Yeah.
those few times. And then, no, actually the one time. And then you adjusted, or you made a change to your schedule for
I
the
did.
next one.
Well, and I felt like it was also the part of it was a misunderstanding of, I felt like you were having thoughts about my inability to prioritize what you thought I should prioritize, but that wasn't where you were coming from either. And so I was feeling like I was letting you down. You didn't feel like I was letting you down. You just were like, I have to do what I have to do.
Yes.
And so I felt, one, like I wasn't doing what I should be doing. Two, that I was letting you down. And three, that like I wasn't a priority for you to have me there. And then we talked about it, and it was like none of that was true. And you also, I think, understood that like this still is a priority to me. I just had previous things. And like, you know, and so I think that is a good example. And I think it was over in like 10 text messages, and it wasn't weird.
No, it wasn't. And it has to be around the intention. Like, I love you so much, and Brad and Faye and several other friends too, in different ways. But there's, you know, you sit back and you think to yourself, there is no part of this that I would let come between me and that person. And it's a little bit like how people think about their marriage and like divorce, you know, like we have to find a way through this. Yeah. Because clearly there's a misunderstanding, and we don't just like stop loving the other person because we feel misunderstood.
No.
You know, and that is like, that persistence from you is the same.
Yeah.
Some of it is driven, you know, I sent you, you know, there's these, again, we live in memes, right? That is just in GIFs. This is just our world. And every single time there's one that pops up, there was like one the other day that it was like, doctor, do you drink? And the patient is like, yes. And then the doctor says, okay. And the patient goes, are you mad at me? And I always send those to Zoe, because she's always, you know, like, and even though she's gotten like 100% better at it, of like sitting in the discomfort, she doesn't like being when people are mad at her.
No, when you send me too many periods, do you remember that one time I called you and I was like, are you mad at me? And you're like, Zoe, I literally have bronchitis and I like have COVID and the flu. So no, I'm not mad. I'm just sleeping. And I was like, okay, feel better. Thanks. And then I hung up the phone and I was like, oh,
Thank
God.
But again, that was just a misunderstanding.
Yes.
Like that whole idea, like, even though we talk every day, you don't know the context. Or
No.
like, if I have a really busy, shitty day at work, and I'm like, and I am like, very brief or short,
or I text you 8 times in a row and you don't respond.
And and then I can hear, and then the last text is, and this is how she says it, or how she would say it, but it's a text. I feel like I'm a crazy girlfriend.
That's exactly how I would say it too.
It is.
And then you're always like, haha, I'm so sorry. I had to blah, blah, blah at work all day. And like, I will agree that now I've gotten a lot better. The like not responding thing. I know how busy you are, or like the short responses, or like, I'll just let it go and be like 9.9 out of 10 times she's not mad at me. So this probably isn't that 0.1 that she's mad at me. And I don't know why I called it. My anxiety was high that day apparently, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Like
right. But I also don't call people on the phone to just chit chat usually.
No.
And I know that when you and I don't get a chance to connect, like, because, and I do this because I care about you, like, I will pick up the phone and call you.
You do.
And I'll say like, hey, I know I haven't been able to respond, or I've been really busy, and I'll tell you, and then I'll check in and see how you're doing. And then we'll just be like, okay, cool. Yeah. You know, and just have that touch point. And it is like, you know, we talk about a lot of these things in the context of our romantic relationships. And I see couples who come in for couples counseling. They're like, they don't prioritize my love language, you know? And I think we have to acknowledge that communication, like love language aside, communication and making sure that you can be honest and vulnerable, communicating with the closest people in your life is number one.
Totally.
Like, I can't even think about giving my husband love the way he wants love if I feel like there is this giant wall between us of miscommunication.
Totally.
Right. And it's no different with friends.
No.
You know? And so the supportive hearty teaming thing is important. You know, Zoe and I have a good history of tear and repair, where, you know, like I said, we've also like straddled this, like working together and being friends. Yeah. Unlike Brad and Faye, for me at least, like, I didn't meet them at work. I met them outside of work, you know, and you and I have done really something that's hard. It is. Which is, we started with a professional relationship. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how professional I call it.
I was 21 years old. How professional. I literally, no. Yeah.
Like, you slept in my kids' beds in Disney World with them.
That sounds really weird. I was their nanny and there was only 2 beds.
I know. No, like it's normal. It's no different than when you and I sleep in the same bed. Come on. She's not some creep. She didn't like sneak into their bed.
Okay. Anyways, I was nannying for you.
And my kids love you.
In a different capacity.
Yes.
But yeah, and I think like that was probably one of my most asked questions about our relationship is what it's like with friend and working. And don't get me wrong, it's not always easy. Like there are definitely like the conversation that we had about the FOMO stuff, like that was related to stuff outside of just our friendship. And that felt like there was like concern, right? About like letting people down, whatever. But like friendship wise, I feel like that's solid. We understand where there hasn't really been tear and repair that's like non-work related, I feel like, but it hasn't impacted our friendship. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah.
And I also think that, you know, you have to decide. And I've had to make this choice more than I've ever thought I'd have to in my life. And it is really hard. But when you have friends who become colleagues or colleagues who become friends, you have to decide which position they're in. Are they first your friend or are they first your colleague?
Yeah.
And you are first my friend.
For sure. 100%.
You know, even if you started as my colleague. And I think that if people are struggling with how you know people or, you know, how you relate or when stuff gets in the way, because Zoe is my friend before my colleague, I have promised that I will do anything to protect our friendship. I've done the same with Faye and Brad. And, you know, like Faye has worked with me for years. We met in grad school and we were friends first. And she knows that I will always make the choice to put our friendship first. Meaning if she's working in a role or a capacity where I feel like it's not what's best for the business and I'm then developing resentment and it's bleeding into our friendship, I will do the hard thing and say, hey, we need to talk about your job.
Yeah.
Because I'm not willing to let the work jeopardize our friendship.
Yeah.
And that is a really hard skill. And, you know, it's one that I've had to just do.
Yeah.
When you create a life of getting to spend this much time with your best friends, like, you know, people always give me shit. Right? Like, oh, you get to hang out with your friends all day. I'm sorry. I worked my ass off to create a world in which my friends had to learn and grow and be able to support. And it's also seasonal. Like, I don't get to see Faye every day. I used to when we were a smaller business and the capacity that she was like, you know, enjoyed the work and like it was a good fit for her. I got to see her and work with her every day. Now I barely get to, and we have to be very, intentional, which is why we go on trips together or we do random Monday night dinners. And, you know, I'm hoping to have her on the podcast in the next couple of episodes too, because she's so funny and has like the most insightful, best things to say.
Yes.
And to know Faye is to love her. Truly.
100%.
But that is a hard thing. And so, you know, this is a little more serious, but that's okay.
It's fun.
It is. But when you have
life can be serious. You just have to joke about it.
So, you know, it's funny, and I'm going to date myself here. There's this movie, old school Ryan Reynolds, like old school, like before he was Deadpool or like super ripped or even like mainstream. Or like with Blake Lively, before he was a A-list celebrity.
Okay.
And the movie is called Van Wilder. Have you seen it?
No.
Okay, it was like got to be from, I don't know, the late 1990s, early 2000s. And he was like a college resident advisor. And he was like in college for like 7 years. And one of the famous quotes from that movie is, people who go to school for 7 years, they're called doctors, but he hadn't had a degree in anything, right? But my favorite quote, so people ask me, like I would be interviewed by Entrepreneur Magazine or something. They're like, what's a quote you live your life by? And I'm like, never take life too seriously. You'll never get out alive. And that's a Van Wilder quote. And it literally...
I didn't know that was where it was from. I've heard you say that a bunch.
Yeah, never take life too seriously or you'll never get out alive. And I just love what it stands for. I love the simplicity. So yes, you can take things seriously. And when you can get to that place where you can turn anything into humor, it's a very cathartic place to be.
It is.
Because life is heavy.
It is.
It's like the reality is it is heavy. I mean, we were just having like full on heartburn over the last few weeks about changing your plane ticket.
Okay, that's because I have trouble with change.
But changing her flight. Yes, you guys. There's
a lot more behind that.
There is.
But we did not get in a fight about it.
No, we problem solved
yes.
it. But also from my perspective of being a business owner and a mother of 5 and just 10 more years on you is that is one of like, that is just life.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you have to change the plane ticket. And I do, it's funny because like, I didn't even tell you this. I remember feeling like that was the end of the world. Like I said it right after we talked about it. Like when I first started traveling, before I understood how it all worked and had to get on the phone with the airline and all that, like it was so anxiety provoking.
Yeah.
And now it is so a part of my life because I just have to pivot with what life throws at me.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. Like life is heavy, and over time you learn how to cope with it.
'Cause I sit down with my husband. We're intentional about the trips. We don't book as many flights. We don't have kids running around. We don't have life changing all the time. So like when we book a flight, it's because we know we're going to be there. Then we book the hotel right away, whatever. And it's like, that's our trip. Like I've literally never had to change a flight in my life. And not that it's a hard thing to do, but like I mean, we can go down a whole different rabbit hole. Like that was my plan in my head, right? It worked out how I wanted it to work out. And now it was changing.
Right. Well, and that's a part of it. But really it comes down to most people who book trips. It's a commitment.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I, like I said, I didn't think about it in that moment. I was just kind of like, Zoe, it's life. We have to change it and it's going to be fine because I've done it a million times. But I did. I remember back when I was in my 20s and I was making flights and I'm like, this is a commitment. And I used to be like, children, you're going to wash your hands. No one's going to get sick because we can't change our plans.
That's exactly how I feel still, even though I'm not really talking to my dog, I guess.
Yeah. I always get the trip insurance.
Yeah. See, we don't do that because I'm like, it's happening.
Right. I mean, not always. But on big trips like cruises and stuff, I don't do it on my flights because and the rules have changed, which I love to be more flexible. We really got off topic.
I was just about to say, but where that comes back to is that was another example of us in our friendship saying, here's something where we're not aligned on because you have a different perspective because you've had different experiences. I was getting flustered by it. And then we were like, you know what? Let's not text about this. Let's just see each other in person and figure it out. And then we were giggling about it because Erin booked my flights for there and back and needed to change both of them, even though she was the one who told me where and when to be somewhere. And so she's like, yeah, it's been a busy week. And so we laughed about it. And then we moved on. Like it wasn't a thing.
We did. And I really liked it because we switched the airport to Daytona. And I'm pretty sure the 3 initials are DAB.
Oh yeah, and then I dabbed. I remember that.
Yes, it was really funny.
It was funny. But we used humor.
Yeah, we used humor, and we did not choose to connect on the misalignment. We chose to focus on what were we misunderstanding about each other.
And I bet I'm sure going back to last week's topic, I probably when I got the text about changing, I was like, oh my God, that's so annoying. Even though it's like, I don't actually think you're annoying for that. I was just overstimulated and overwhelmed. And then my response wasn't, Erin, you're so annoying. You're changing my flight. It was like, okay, let's figure it out.
Next time, will you do a voice memo where you say, little tiny wieners, line it up? Because I would actually appreciate that.
I could do that way more often than just in something like that.
Yeah, I think it's part of how we need to just support Baylin. Like we're obsessed with her.
We're obsessed.
Really like her. I remember when I found her online and I sent it to everyone like a long time ago and you were like, oh my God, I just saw this.
You loved Wind It Up. Anyways.
Yep. So.
All right.
Well, that's a great way to end because we started with Baylin. So we don't know her, but we want to. And we support her show. So please support her and anybody else. And make sure you talk to your friends openly and honestly.
And send us questions. I wanna hear from you guys and talk about things and yeah.
I do too. Love it.
Love it.
Episode 4 out.
Peace out.